Hey all. I figure I end up doing a quick video. Well, not so quick. My videos tend to get rambly. The fact that you guys stick around is great for it, but I wanted to end up offering some thoughts. Primarily based around a lot of the skills I've ended up seeing on the table as far as paint goes, and especially when doing a horde style army, which mine typically are, some of the barriers you're going to end up coming across. Now, the first and foremost thing, I made a few mentions of this, but it bears repeating. When you're starting an army, start extremely small. I mean extremely small. Pick up that one model that you really want, maybe that one squad you really want, paint it up. Yeah, a lot of people say to start playing, and if you want to get playing that right out of the gate, you'll never go wrong with two troop choices and an HQ. That being said, picking them all up in one go might not necessarily be the best idea, especially if your models are picked up through another dealership or what have you. Maybe it's one large kit. I've seen some people get overwhelmed by picking up those Battle Force boxes where, here's a whole bunch of models so you can get playing. Great value, but it means you gotta stick it out. And some of those come with so many models to start, it's actually somewhat amusing. But the problem is that if you end up putting that much plastic on the table, you're going to have to paint it all. And what happens is that, well, it's kind of like what's happening with me right now. I'm right into this situation where I'm trying to get a tabletop level, not my best painting, just functional, looks good at a distance, looks good on the table. And unfortunately, because of the way I look at it, I typically get nitpicky. And I just start beating myself up over these little things. I should be doing this better. I should be doing that better. I should be doing more highlights. I should be doing more of this. I should be doing more of that. And that word should, yeah, get rid of that. That's not going to help you at all with your painting. What that's going to be is building up higher and higher standards to the point where now it's become a job. Now it's become tedium rather than an enjoyable part of the hobby. Second thing I would end up offering. Don't start looking at any of your up-close models. Always look at them from a distance. Right now, you're seeing a picture of what I got painted up so far on the table. This gives me a chance to sit back and really look at it as a whole. And how does it pick out? I think it's going to start looking really good once I throw in some basic highlighting and finish up the bases. So this way the purple's not blending in and you can really start picking out the silhouette of each unit. Another thing I want to end up stressing, and this typically ends up becoming an issue if you're a perfectionist, you gotta know when to call it. When is this ready to be put on tabletop? Now, a lot of people want to end up going right from 0 to 60, and I can guarantee you that's going to cause burnout. 90% of the work is always in the last 10% of a project. And that's almost true for everything. In the case of, these NIDs, the hard part, like the part that really ends up making me kind of kick myself, is just trying to end up doing the layering on the claws and, all the shit, and trying to end up making that gradient. And it's not exactly a smooth gradient, it's just me working from one color to another. But I start kicking myself. There's a few models that don't have nice gradients. There's others that it's really nice. There's others that aren't quite up to snuff. But if I start going back up to those, if I start repainting them over and over again, if I start going into all those little details like making a gradient for the teeth and trying to blend all the flesh tones, that purple flesh tone, because you know purple's a common color, and try and bring it up, what's eventually going to happen is I'm going to get bogged down, and I will be spending an entire year painting before I get my first 500-point game in. Now, if you do this entirely for the painting, that's great. Myself, I used to think of myself as a painter, but reality is looking at how many models I don't have painted, more of a collector. I enjoy building like 1,000, 1,500 point armies and just playing them. Now, this has left me with a lot of plastic that I really should end up finishing up, and I've already given you guys a few bits of nightmare fuel on how much stuff I actually need to paint. But that being said, you know, take it slow. A lot of the models, that brings me to the third point. A lot of the models are going to take more time than you estimate. The Gene Stealers as a pack took me roughly 4 hours. Now, that's not bad for speed painting, you know, getting tabletop ready and what have you, but I would expect that done in 2. It seems too simple to be done, but reality is once you're waiting for ink to dry, trying to end up doing everything, your concentration starts going down, and the little things start taking longer and longer to do. Temper your expectations and build up from that. There's nothing to say you can't go back to that army and, you know, maybe work out a few of the details. Find that 1 or 2 models that just isn't quite right and go back to it. Another thing I'd like to end up bringing up. Always write down. I would end up saying in the back of your codex is probably one of the best ways to do it. Exactly what paints you do and any little things that you may end up doing specific to make that army look the way it does. I have a lot of other projects on the go that, quite frankly, I can't go back to because either they don't make the color anymore, or I don't know what specific color I used, and if I try and use another color, all of a sudden it doesn't quite fit. And if that's the only unit like that, yeah, the unit pops out, but not in the way I was intending. So always keep a list. Another thing, stop, bring them all together, all the models that you have painted, and just look at it as a whole, right? Take a step back. We spend so much time looking at those models up close. We see all those imperfections. But that's not how your opponent sees them. Set them up the way your opponent sees them. Put them on the other end of the table. And just look at them. And look at them as a whole. And you're going to end up seeing how the army starts to really come together. And you can find those details that you need to bring out. There's just a few things that if you just took the time to paint a little brighter or break it out a bit more, suddenly that army pops right off the table. And it doesn't have to be a big thing, it doesn't have to be anything fancy, it doesn't have to be anything close. But oftentimes when you're so close to the army, literally, you miss those details that really need to pop when it's on the table across, not up close with scrutiny. Lastly, one of the things that usually bites me in the ass, and I haven't figured this one out, is I try and pace myself. I feel like I should be getting more done, and I'm kicking myself for it. And when I start doing that, I don't want to paint anymore. And I gotta force myself to sit down and do it again. But unfortunately, sometimes when I get like that, I just can't bring myself to paint anymore. I just walk away from it. I might play 1 or 2 games with the new army, or how it's painted, or the new list, but then I just stop. I just don't enjoy that hobby anymore. This goes for a few things that I do. But here, well, I think you guys got that figured out. You know, I like when I'm playing across the table to feel like I'm part of that Tyranid swarm. This is not only mine, but I'm looking across the table, and you have that mindset. And there's different types of predators to emulate if you're playing Tyranids. You know, everything from an ambush predator to stalking predator. Maybe you set traps. You know, there's something to be said to play it like a spider and be very manipulative. But that requires a lot of skill that I just don't have. Still, getting back to painting. At the end of the day, wherever you're at, as far as your level of painting, don't ever stop. You're going to develop. Little techniques are going to come out to be a little bit more fluid. It's just going to come more naturally. It's going to get easier. You're going to just get through things a little quicker. But it takes time, and it takes a certain level of comfort. Till then, you know, build up. There's some guys who've been painting and are amazing at it. Be inspired by them, but don't compare yourself to them. What you bring to the table is your own. And where you're at is where you're at. Use it as a benchmark. Be happy with what you ended up doing. Be proud of what you put on the table. Because, well, quite frankly, if it's not bare plastic or just prime models, you're ahead of the curve by, I would guess, 80% of all the players I've ever met. And they put in some effort. They put in a lot of effort into making their models look good. But they do it at such a slow pace that I honestly think that it was the same piece of plastic a year ago I was playing against that hasn't been painted. And you don't want to put yourself in that position. Instead, put yourself in a position where you're enjoying the hobby. Where what you put down on the table, you take an element of pride in, and I can guarantee you you're going to come back for more. I hope this little bit of advice helps out somebody. And I'll try and end up keeping my own thoughts to this and how to keep going. And keep them posted. As far as I'm concerned, we're all in this together. If I help out somebody else in the hobby, that's only me giving back to a community who's been very, very patient with me. And I thank them for all their help. If I want to end on one thing, I want to end up ending on a thank you to Nick. You know, he's the one who's been giving me a little bit of traffic on these videos, you know. It meant a lot to end up knowing that there's a few people who are actually interested in what I've been doing with HiveFleetDraughr. Hopefully, you guys will get something out of this as I have. At least the motivation to post, share my thoughts, share my army and its development. Well, if you guys can and you're not already, I doubt it, but if you aren't, subscribe to Nick. His channel's in the description, and I wish you all the best of luck. Leave a comment, follow along for the ride if you want by hitting that subscribe button, and we will end up seeing where this goes. We're on day 6. 4 more days to go. Take care.